I'm going to try to keep this to around 5 minutes or so. I'm going to shoot through it. It's about the clouds. Basically, Jesus is said to come back on a cloud, and I'll explain to you why it's actually pointing to me. And the other interpretation is a sort of white supremacy, pedo, LGBT, kind of theater arts, ritual madness, religious ecstasy interpretation, a pagan Dionysus interpretation, okay, for the mystery schools that dominate every culture that's allowed. That's what is meant in Revelation, that Satan leads the whole world astray. What is meant in Paul's writing, that Satan blinds the minds of people, right? He conditions them, cultivates them with cultures and cults over generations to see things a certain way and have cultural barriers, so they don't understand the obvious universal principles that point to me. So first of all, the sun gate through the cloud is the top martial arts ever possible. I am said to be in the cloud and on the cloud, sabotaged, and I am the way, the truth, and the life, and the only way to heaven. The metaphors involved in this are unnecessary and complex and spread out, and they're further confused by society having all kinds of false interpretations that they put front and center, why they obscure, right? Obscure the truth. Healed is he, lead, scrambled. So people are kind of mentally ill, and they also have mentally ill people running mental health to confuse that more. So first of all, the cloud blocks the sun, right? What is the sun? In Psalm 19, the sun is the bridegroom, the champion, the top martial artist. Malachi 4:2, the sun of righteousness. Hosea 6:5, the judgments. The sun is compared to the judgments. The sun is connected to judgment. So it's the righteous bridegroom, top martial artist, champion, judging. Again, Exodus 15:3, the Lord is a warrior. Isaiah 42:13, the Lord is a warrior, champion, marching forth, mighty warrior, raising the battle cry, stirring up his zeal, etc. So what is the cloud? The cloud is darkness. It is punishment. It is judgment. It is handing you over to Satan in the flesh to be punished. And Satan has no power in the afterlife, despite how they've confused that in popular culture. It's actually me punishing you forever in the afterlife. In this world, Satan is the god of this world. And the abyss of the mind being confused and put into darkness, the dark abyss with the dark cloud coming between God. But the sun kind of shines through the clouds a little bit. The sun is in the clouds a little bit. So I'm on and in the cloud, and under my feet, okay, is the world. So you see in Matthew, it says, I am, and you'll see the Son of God sitting at the right hand of power by the mighty one, by God, coming on the clouds of heaven. Another interpretation, with the clouds of heaven. So what does the darkness bring? What does battle bring? They talk about a lot of battles when they talk about the end. They talk about in Hosea 13, I believe it is, Isaiah 13, I believe it is, that there's women are raped and men are dashed to pieces. Well, there's more than one way to rape women. And these people love metaphors, occult. It's hidden. It's hidden right there in popular culture, right? There's 433,000 rapes a year. In America, there's 71 rapes a day in the American military, and so on and so forth. And there's rape by deception, coercion, etc. So all sex is rape, and it has to do with the deity Serapis, whose name is rapes is scrambled. Okay? Rape eyes, right? They don't see things correctly, the mind's eye, and they're basically are taken advantage of, and all sex outside the divine order as a result. And I'm not having sex, so it is rape. All sex that is occurring is rape by deception, because they're taking advantage of the psychological construct. People are too confused and dumbed down to consent. That's why having sex with a mentally retarded person is said to be rape at times, and so on and so forth. Mentally ill, right? Drunk person has to do with one's ability to consent and physiology and chemistry and the chemical balance of the brain and so on and so forth. Okay. So rapture is rape root scrambled. The word grape, right, trotting on the wine press, has the word rape in it. Prepare is pre-rape scrambled. Pirate is rape it scrambled. Corporate, core pirate. You should understand why I'm right by now. All right. So selfish is see flesh scrambled. Okay. And is flesh scrambled. Okay. And of course there's the horny devil depiction, right? Eros, erotic desire. Eros is sore, and rose. Rose is concealed sexual passion and desire. Okay, it's basically this torture chamber of society, and they tease you. The word set is tease, T-E-S, scrambled. Okay, so they tease you, and of course Set is Zeus's equivalent, Baal's equivalent, and they're all storm gods, lightning, and so on and so forth. All right. Okay. So again, I'll make it a second point that the Son of Man is the spirit above. The darkness of the devil after he blocks out the sun with the clouds, which God allowed him to do. That's why God said, it's said to be that God's doing it. God's allowing for it. Okay, if you don't do the right thing, God allows you to suffer. If you're going to war, if you're in a world where everyone suffers and you're not right with God, God allows you to suffer. If you turn to Lucifer, you've betrayed God on the highest level, and you're marked for a special torment in the afterlife and extreme torture in the afterlife with your offspring. And that's what's happening right now. There's a bunch of people in the churches and all these philosophies that are turning to Luciferian kind of mind tricks in their literature. And the devil is said to say the mind is a place of its own. It can make heaven out of hell. So moving on. Isaiah 30. Okay. Nations are said to be shaken in the sieve of destruction. A bit is placed in the people's mouths to lead them astray. Darkness is following them. Okay. Their bread be red, right, to be evil. Their childish, Rothschild, Babylon, Babyline system. Okay. So there's darkness, the anger of the Lord's wrath. So when people get angry, you kind of feel confused. Or someone's angry at you, you're like, what did I do? Okay. This is very similar. Same with depression. God is allowing these people to be led astray because he's angry at them. Okay. Don't confuse that with Jesus and the martyrs being persecuted, right? People who are good still suffer, but like it says in Isaiah, the righteous are taken away, and no one understands. The righteous are taken away to be spared from evil. Going to Isaiah 66 and Proverbs 34. Okay, whose hands have gathered up the wind, whose fists have gathered up the wind, the top martial artist. Okay, Set uses technology and psychology to mislead. God is said to come with chariots like a whirlwind, and to come down on the head of his foes, right? To destroy the foes with fire and anger. Okay, again, Jeremiah, there's a scorching wind, too strong to win or cleanse. It advances like the clouds. A besieging army is hidden. And it goes back to secretion, secret societies, right, raping and so on and so forth. Militaries, cops, state, military-industrial complex, social clubs, gentlemen's clubs, all these groups that work together, criminal groups and so on and so forth, education groups and so on and so forth, corporate groups. And God is complaining that these people, their own actions and conduct has brought that on them. He said they're fools, they're senseless, they're skilled in doing evil. No light from God. There's no fruit of good. No good, no righteousness, no truth in them. Okay, the world is damned permanently. We see that in Isaiah 24. Isaiah 40, all nations are said to be worthless, worth less than nothing. Psalm 4:17, the wicked go down to the realm of the dead, all the nations that forget God. Okay, so in Isaiah 13, God summons his warriors and the weapons and the wrath of his destruction. The weapons are his wrath, right? It's a spiritual wrath that's consuming their essence, as when they, it's kind of like if you jump into a fire, you get burned. If you act like a sinner and you sin and you have no valid redeemer and you refuse to admit what redemption really is, you automatically suffer God's wrath. And eventually comes to a head. What the clouds symbolize is the end of the Messiah and him going to the right hand of God. So I'm ascending to heaven, and my body is harder. It's harder and harder for me to communicate. There's a clouding the judgment, a fog in the mind, a mental fog that makes it hard for me to say what I'm trying to say. That's why they're fuming me and gassing me. These people are self-fulfilling prophecy lunatics. Okay. Is rape by deceptions occurring, right? They talk about the gates of the nobles. Going back to what I said at the beginning of this, where it's the sun gate, is the bridegroom, the champion. I'm the gate. I'm the highest point of nobility, wisdom, all the martial art principles, all the life principles. Okay, Isaiah 13, talks about this. Now, also, again, the whirlwinds, sweeping away like chaff, and so on and so forth. Going to Psalm 118, right? It's called the gates of God and the gates of the righteous. So it's the gates of the nobles, gates of God, gates of the righteous, right? Gates of all the martial art principles. Jeremiah 30, the prophets lie. They say, you will have peace, but you won't. Have they stood in the presence of God? No. They don't have the essential alpha essence to sense the presence of God. Again, the essential alpha essence to sense the presence of God. And the whirlwind comes down on the head of the wicked. The storm breaks out in the wrath of God. So what happens, right? They don't think clearly. Why aren't people obeying God through me when it's so obvious? See all these white supremacists, these LGBT people, these pedophiles, horrible people in the churches and all the cultures that are allowed. Horrible, obviously hypocritical, cowardly, foolish, conformist, worldly people. and they see me, it's like the sun in the sky, and they don't obey, right? Because their mind is fucked up from generations of doing the wrong thing and refusing to be morally precise, and it comes to a head. And after I'm dead, the tragedy is so great that they're trying to express it with poetry and all these, Jeremiah, Hosea, Isaiah, Revelations, the Gospels, and Paul's writings, and on and on. They're trying to get it through your head that when I die, there's no valid Redeemer ever again, and the world is thrown into the lake of fire, and you start off like just touching the fire in your life, right? You feel some kind of misery, but then you go to the essence of suffering in the afterlife, okay? It's like approaching the sun. If you could live, in the flesh you'll burn up, but so you just burn from far away, you're kind of uncomfortable in a really hot day, 120 degrees, but in the afterlife you come closer to the core of it. So that's what's symbolic of. It's part of what the sun is communicating to us, is extreme suffering for those who do not choose justice in the afterlife. They're going to suffer forever. Okay. So again, God, in Psalm 19, God communicates with the heavens. The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. So nature's communicating to you what's going to happen already. The wise and the foolish builders, right? When the foolish builders didn't consider the storm. They didn't consider what happens when their injustice comes to a head and they suffer to the extreme. Okay? So, of course, the woman and the dragon in Revelation shows us that Jesus, right? He's born into this world, and there's all kinds of symbolism there. I don't have time for that. Let's just shoot through this. Psalm 97, clouds and thick darkness surround God's throne. Okay, righteousness and justice are the foundation. The stone the builder rejected, okay, is righteousness and justice. What people rejected, right? Jesus goes on and talks about repent or die. He says, you fools, you've neglected the finer points of the law. It's justice, faith, and mercy. Okay, justice, faithfulness, and mercy. We see in Psalm 45 that the King of Kings rides out in the cause of truth, justice, and humility. So it says they've rejected justice and righteousness and judgment. We see Solomon asking for a discerning heart. So my judgment is also shining like a light. It says these people have judged to continue to play stupid, to continue to cheat me out of my rightful place. We have David and Goliath. We have angels depicted with spears. When David takes his sword at the end and cuts off his head. Jesus said, I came to bring a sword. We have Joshua. We have all kinds of martial art-like combat that's superimposed on the most intense version of it, which is the divine version of it, is martial art combat from Africa. So the Asian guys aren't as good as the African guys in martial arts. We see that in UFC. But imagine with razor sharp weapons, if things come to head, mind, body, soul, and spirit. And so we see this here. Okay. So they say, put on the armor of God, right? And the wise and foolish builders. What are they talking about? They're talking about putting on righteousness and justice and doing the right thing. Okay? They're not talking about literal armor from the West. They're not talking about castles from the West. And this is part of the confusion. These guys build nice castles and all these churches, right? The Spirit of God doesn't live in temples built by human hands, whether it's the body or whether it's the castle. So their worldly martial arts couldn't create me. Okay, only righteousness in the Alpha martial art order from Africa, right? Hebrew is an Afro-Asiatic language. The Bible is superimposed on the Royal African Falcon martial art order. Moses studied in Egypt. Jesus studied in Egypt, and so on and so forth. Joseph, okay, and all those Jews who went there, they learned in Egypt. It was like a training school, and they learned the ways of hand-to-hand combat from the Egyptians, and they went and started cleaning up their enemies, in Exodus. Okay, I'll just leave